So this is a little video that Dean and I thought to put together. We've been catching up remotely every couple of days, just talking about life, the government, the world of recruitment. I've decided to go fluffy head, so I'm more of a tennis ball these days, and Dean's going turning into Stavros. He can do a lovely kebab with that beard. It looks brilliant. This is also in your house, mate. You're a little fella, but you've got an enormous house. That must be the fourth office you've been. And I've been sat here putting flowers out, trying to look like a nicer person. So it's been weird. I thought it'd be fun because we've both done a few interviews recently and look at all the questions that have been asked of us and then give people a perspective how we're thinking. And then obviously that we were in touch with everybody, as 81 people on a webinar this morning, and give people some insight into the noise out of what is effectively 300 recruitment CEOs these days.
Yeah.
You happy with that?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Right, so the first thing everyone says is obviously, how are you doing in lockdown? And you are Mr. Routine, and this is hard.
It is hard. I mean, my dogs, my children, maybe my wife, they're living their best life at the moment. They wake up, they've got a coffee, they've got biscuits. You know, they look like the dogs have got attention. I mean, some are having a great time. But yeah, when you break your routine, I'm a 4:30 in the morning person, and I found myself getting up probably closer to 5:30, 6, and it feels like by the time I've staggered into the day, I've missed some of it. And although I can't do as much, really from home as I could do normally, you get used to it. I mean, people are in much worse positions than we are. So every time I have a little moan, and as you know, because I'll generally text you something and read something political, I kind of kick myself or you kick me, and I just kind of go, yeah, okay, we've got to get around it. It is what it is. What about you?
Totally. Oh. I reckon there's a secret society that everyone's actually saying, who has to phone in today? Oh, fuck, it's me. Right, and they're picking up the phone saying, you're right, mate, and they're trying to get off it as quickly as possible. No, I'm not built for this. It's hard. There's so much going on today that I'll just miss my dog walk. And it's just those little things. And suddenly I know that someone's going to get it on LinkedIn today because I've missed my dog walk. so anyway, I'll keep myself sane, but that's been quite fun. So the benefit of having you in the RDL, so there are a million benefits, and I love you dearly, but I do really love this new you because you're getting up and you're reading all the newspapers and all the reports so nobody else has to. And you still don't quite understand that we don't subscribe to the FT, so you still have to actually take screenshots and send them to us. But when you send this stuff, you're really quite opinionated at the moment about what the government's doing. And we're both big Tories. Well, I do think that Starmer's, he's pretty good, isn't he? And if he was a Tory, we wouldn't be upset of having him there. He looks like someone you could really trust. So that's going to be interesting coming out of this.
Yeah, I don't know. You speak to the police commission about that, they might not. He's stopped a few prosecutions. Jimmy Savile, 3-1.
Oh, okay. But should we not have that debate? So, orcs. But in the grand scheme of things, I think the Tories have done pretty well out of this. They've said things very quickly. They've not delivered it very quickly. But as someone who's more politically informed than pretty much everybody else I know, and the fact that being in education and the public sector, you just know these faces and what is and isn't happening. But just give it an insight as to where you feel we are right now.
I mean, it's quite a big question. I mean, in terms of government actions, I think they moved fairly swiftly in terms of announcing furlough, announcing C-bills, announcing support for workers. And that's great. But actually, reality was that took a long time. And in that long time of understanding what those calculations would look like, understanding how that would affect your business, obviously there was some knee-jerk reactions that everybody looked at their cash flow and said, right, I've got a furlough, and they deferred PAYE and VAT and anything else they could stop paying. And we saw that across pretty much every industry. Everyone just turned off direct debits and then turned on the ones they really had to pay. But look, if you stop paying someone else has to stop paying someone else, has to stop paying someone else. In our market in education, a lot of supply teachers fell between the gaps because the original guidance was schools would pay for all contingent workers. and they would look back over the 12 weeks and work out this continual pay. That didn't happen. There's no leverage with schools. So then that turned to the agencies and the umbrella companies. They were looking for guidance. Small agencies had to take out loans to cover the furloughs, so otherwise they would have gone under. And it's not the supply teacher's fault or the agency's fault. That they've got no one's fault. It's just it was so, there was nothing. It was a little bit opaque. People didn't really know who was going to deliver this money on time and whether they would. And I think the government probably done quite well in extending everybody's cash flows. So the money you deferred and you had as cash, rather than saying, right, I've got to get rid of everybody, you kept a few people and you furloughed others, you paid that furlough. Some of it, I would reckon, 50% probably compassionate because you didn't know whether you'd keep them after. And the government did a good job, I think, of extending businesses' cash flow rather than everybody taking the money early. I think it went on a little bit longer, and I think they've not done enough for directors, the self-employed, those on 0-hour contracts and whatever else. I think that's just not clear enough. So for the top workers in the country, working from home isn't necessarily an issue, but it has shown, I think, how fragile human capital is at the lower levels, right? And how much of a need coming out of this that we've got to train people, we've got to educate people. Things like AI are going to take such a bigger form in our lives. So I think we're going through a transition stage. I think there'll be some pluses to this. I think now is a critical moment. If the government have hammered this nail of fear so hard and so deep, you know what it is? You hammer that nail in. If you do it too much, it's really hard to get out. And I think that's what's going to happen now. The government turning this fear factor. I mean, they're very good at propaganda. We all know that. Every government is, and that's the pervasiveness of social media. But if they don't turn it quickly, I think, other businesses will struggle. I think in certain parts of recruitment, as you know well, tech's kind of a little bit isolated, medical's been isolated, but there are those who are going to struggle for a long time.
And I do think that people are going to be nervous to come back to work, and actually they might have got used to not working. So it's going to be really quite hard. I'm going to speak to some CEOs today, and they were talking about tapping in and tapping out. So they're seeing people at home actually just bursting to come back to work, and they're seeing some other people who are working from home, and their performance is going down and down and down and down and down, and they're getting some really bad habits and not doing the great things. Or businesses that weren't driving KPIs or numbers suddenly really driving forward on KPIs, and it's making people melt. So it's trying to find that balance, but nobody's done this before, right? We're all playing at it and just trying to fathom what is right, what isn't right. And if you make a mistake, it could be really costly. However, there's a lot of businesses who've actually looked at different markets, right? So USA, Austin, there are literally people with guns, cowboys in the streets trying to shoot people to say, let's go back to work. Yeah. So Austin's gone off, which is interesting. So that given and where we are, and there looks to be light at the end of the tunnel. It looks like as long as this new soft, fluffy Boris coming out of hospital thinking it's the end of the world, because he softened a little bit, and we were fans. May, June, July. What do you reckon?
The positivity in the papers this week, as you said, I read them, loads of them every morning, and kind of curate and put information out. I think the media tone has changed slightly this week because they've realised that there's so much clickbait out there and so many headlines. You read the story and it's nothing like that, but most people just read the headline. The counterbalance on the epidemiologists, and I've posted many times that if you put assumptions in, assumptions out, they're all guessing. So Brexit and the crash and whatever else, pretty much 90+% of economists are wrong. The epidemiologists are wrong. They're all guessing.
I know you always love a fact, because if the fact doesn't work, if the fact works against you, you always say, "Thank God for that," because it's going to be wrong anyway.
They're always wrong. It's like when you say, you do a plan or whatever. The plan is cathartic, right? And I think for all of us, we look at this stuff, but there's still a bit of pragmatism. Over 100,000 years, human beings have survived without total big state intervention, right, in their lives. And I just think we've got to be mindful of that. I would see, not total return to normal, because fear takes time to dissipate. And I think it will probably be the autumn before people just forget, because memories are quite short. And I think for all of the work at home and I'm really enjoying this, productivity's gone up. Productivity's gone up because you've got nothing else to do. You can't pop out and have a coffee with your friends. Right? You can't do a little bit of shopping because you've not got much else to do. And I think that balance when we go back will be quite hard. But people are going to have to get themselves back into the office. I spoke to several businesses this week about taking on new starters. I know we work in recruitment, so there's a lot of human interaction, got no assets, only people. But that on-the-job training of don't do this, why do you do that? Try this, do this. This will work really well, work for you right now. And this is the product. No, this is the USP. These are the benefits of it. Can't do that. You can't do that. No. So the young, those early careers in life, they're going to stutter, right, for the next 2 or 3 years. So I think, we've got to be aiming for June. Again, in my market, schools is a big thing to get the economies up and running. Primaries are earmarked to go back in June. I think
Year 6. They're isolating Year 6 because that's the year when they're going to go from primary to secondary. Yeah. And that still doesn't make sense to me. But and all the parents at home are saying the Year 6s can kind of look after themselves. It's the years below that, the ones that eat all your time, they're draining you. Yeah. And having kids at home of different ages and trying to homeschool apparently is an absolute nightmare.
Oh, I've got mine at home, and it is tough. And we're not teachers, we're not trained to do that, but you just don't have that structure. Primary school's going back. The difference between the kind of risk factor from primary school to a secondary school is 0.01%, right?
I know.
Under 10-year-olds not been shown to transmit it to any adults. And I think there is that's the fear factor. So, unions and teachers, they're front line. They've got to get a head around that. Secondary schools, you've got year 11 and 13 are kind of out anyway, right? They've done GCSEs and
there's nothing to do. Yeah, there's nothing to do.
Yeah, it could be 25% of your pupils already not in the school. I think secondaries will need to come back. The hardest thing, same in business, education, whatever, is momentum. And when you're in the zone and you're doing stuff and you're freewheeling, you're getting stuff done and it just happens. To stop and start, we all know it's really, really tough, right? And for the kids, they think, I'll just pick up where I left off. They won't. And that bridging the learning gap, I think, is going to be really tough. So for schools, for businesses, the sooner the better. They've got to do something quite quickly.
And it's also with the bounce as well. So things that obviously with these green shoots, the minute that we can actually get some sort of date, be a penciled in date of that's the day we would say phase 1 of going back, then phase 2, and we have an indication of that. We're sitting here telling everyone the world is just going to erupt in recruitment because there's pent up demand and there's frustration and things aren't getting done and all the priorities have changed. And businesses will be looking for sort of an opportunity to gain advantage during that period of time. As a result, we both know that businesses are bringing back people from furlough left, right, and centre. They've been tapping in, tapping out, but they're bringing people back all over the place now to actually start doing BD. Now, we're driving a BD webinar next week. Trevor did one the week before. And it's all going to be really exciting about where the world could go for a period of time, as long as we don't go through that second wave. And if we wait too late, it gets a bit colder, then the general winter flu would hit again. And is flu going to get caught up with COVID? It's right. So we need. Sorry, I've got a bit of Deanism. So we've got to get people back now, haven't we? Yeah. We've got to get people back working, and we want to build some confidence in recruitment business leaders. Now is a really good time to start bringing people back. And just tickle them in, and then you'll get some momentum into what we're doing because there are markets out there that are doing really well.
You're right.
Embarrassingly well. Yeah.
Embarrassingly well, and there are, and obviously education is quiet and dead, and you've also got tourism and you've got hospitality, and there are markets that are suffering, but tech is quite insulated, as we've said. You've got medical going through the roof. I was saying to you earlier, one of the things I was talking to a business about this week was everything's an opportunity, right? And we know in entrepreneurs and businesses, the self-determination is the biggest factor towards success. And that's the same in society as a whole, that self-determination for change and progress. And it's kind of why public sector has that inertia, because it's having its rules set for it all the time. And I think, it doesn't like criticism. And criticism for me is just, it's the admission price for progress, right? You're going to get criticised if you do something different.
Oh, you've read that. You've totally read that.
It's from a conversation I had yesterday.
Your Vulcan memory.
I said this yesterday. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they asked me a question, and I come up with this line. And I was saying, for me, for all these recruitment companies, and bear in mind, we piped on about 41,000, and you've got the big boys, and you've got kind of this massive gap. And all the small companies, all they want to be is big, and all the big companies, all they want to be is agile. And no matter where you are, you're never right? You're never perfect. But for all of these small companies that are looking at it, where they haven't had to furlough a huge percentage of their staff, and actually even the onboarding experience for the big returners is going to be a really tough thing to do. I was calling it the game of dethrones, right? Dethroning those businesses that have been sat there and getting fat on cheap, easy business, right? And to quote Warren Buffett, price is what you pay, quality is what you get, right? And we know from our group, we've got some amazing little businesses, right, who are growing and doing things really differently, productizing, you love, and doing things, the way they should be done, right? And those kind of removing that adversarial relationship and being really, really in with their clients, understanding their clients, scoping their clients, and working in partnerships. Well, what bigger opportunity? Because, two things to spend time in our lives when we come out of this. The first one's big state, how they're going to get their tax back, the control, the tracking, and everything else they're going to do for people. And I do worry about that, as you know. Whether you're Conservative, Labour, whatever, I'm not massive on big state intervention. I think people should be treated like adults. I think markets should be free and many other things. But tech, right? We just talked about it. Tech's going to be everywhere. AI is going to be everywhere. Everything's going to be in the cloud, and everybody's going to have to invest in tech in case something like this or different happens again. Right? It's going to boom. It's going to boom. And I think
it was really interesting because it's a death of 1,000 cuts for a lot of these big corporates, the PLCs, and they're suffering. So they're actually reporting loads of numbers which are down on down. I also think they're using this moment in time is to piling all of those losses into this moment because nobody's looking at one brand against another brand against another brand. So they're actually protecting their future share price during this moment. But the reality is, if you're a nimble recruitment business, you can come up with something really clever to say at the moment. You can nick share because the playing fields have been leveled left, right, and centre. And when people say the market is this much down, I don't believe it because the analysts are only looking at this many businesses. Yeah. However, we always wish for a small little recession, don't we? A little nudge in the recession. When I spoke to Mark Wood, the Explorer today, he was talking about the world and the planet and the climate would do if you pulled out the electric plug for 10 minutes, then put it back in. He got what we wished for. It almost feels like we've got what we wished for. But going back, there are going to be some big businesses that are going to fail through this period of time, and then you don't wish for anybody to fail. But that does just you're going to smell it, opportunity absolutely everywhere. If people didn't furlough or they bring people back quicker, they can take that on. Let me ask you another question then, which is the second question that everybody asked. That was the first one. The second question was, what changes do you think through this whole COVID thing are going to remain permanent? Home working, more use of tech, freedoms. What do you think?
Debt. It's going to be the big one. And
tax.
Is that bit's hard to forecast. I was saying to an accountant yesterday, actually, talking to an accountant about this, and they were going on from a tax point of view, saying, well, they're going to have to bring in bigger corporation tax or raise corporation tax again. And for the Treasury, bang for your buck, right? Nothing has multiplicity like reducing corporation tax. It's not a vote winner, but it brings in investment, it brings in business, and there's also, you don't mind paying tax at a low level. There's a fairness value for that. And businesses don't then necessarily avoid as much tax as they might have. So the coffers do swell. But it might be that they feel they've sliced and diced everything, right? And that they need to come back with corporations. And there's nothing more permanent than a temporary tax, right? So every time they brought in a temporary tax in history, that pretty much stays, right? So that's going to be a big thing to think about because businesses will have to bear the brunt of that. And you can't grow an economy unless, with public coffers, unless you tax human capital, right? We all have to be taxed for working. So it's a driver for recruitment. So I think some of the stuff we saw in the last recession, we'll see again, that kind of stop-start bits of certain businesses and whatever else, if this goes on for a bit longer. But I think for me, what's going to be really quite interesting is in our sector, and I'm only talking about our sector, and I think it'd be the same for other sectors, but I can't just talk as knowledgeably about those, but it's the relationship between business owner and staff, right? Because it could have been really badly damaged if you've treated your staff badly during this time. But we know 41,000 agencies, not all good. I work in the school sector, 22,500 schools. I know they're not all good, right? You can't have this kind of level of achievement and perfection. But there's always been that paying more for less. I'm going to take a senior person from over there, I'm going to pay them more, I'm going to give them more commission, they're going to bring across businesses. So there's kind of been this, cannibalization, right, of what we do. And it's hubris as well, right? I've got to take them to Dubai, I've got to take them here, and I've got to take them there. I've got to do all this stuff. And people turn up in interviews and saying, well, where'd you go on, where'd you take us on trips? How many fancy meals do I go for, right? And actually, I've seen a difference now where people are going, do you know what? This is a really good job. This is a great career. This is a great place to be. I've probably been operating at 50 to 60%, because we've seen businesses where they've shot up with less staff because actually those workers have picked up that slack where they have been 50 or 60%, and now they're 80 or 90%. And we all know we prefer to be operating at 80, 90%. So I hope that stays. I hope that engagement in actually being a really good recruiter and understanding your business, your domain, your products and whatever else, which, you've been pushing heavily during this lockdown, people have really managed to get to grips with that. And I think that's one of the best parts of this is that people have been able to train, learn and get better without the immediacy of pressure of being able to have those open conversations with clients, have those open conversations with candidates, find out a little bit more. And I just hope that stays. Because when I worked with you, God, many, many, many years ago, that was drummed into me, those relationships, that network, understanding things. And it seemed to have died just in emails and text messages and bots. I hope the conversation stays. And I hope the relationship...
I think you're right on that, because the minute everything had a little wobble, everyone started looking at their P&L, looking for ROI and absolutely everything, culling stuff. Now do that with your staff list. Go through all of your people, look for gains and trains, so people you think actually that person can do it. And imagine where you want your business. Oh, it's the front door, hang on. This is real time. Oh, thank you. Cheers. I have no idea.
Willy Warmer.
Julianne is buying shit all day long. It's now competitive. So you look at your staff, and there are certain people in your business who are really up for this. Imagine your business in 2 years' time. We are going to be all consultancies, right? So recruitment is dead. I might have mentioned it before, and it's all about selling outsourced solutions. And that sales process is different. It's about having a relationship. It's about a four-call intro. It's about taking people on a journey. It's about understanding the business dynamics and the economics of what we do and aligning what our service against those people and speak to the right people and take it's a journey, right? Yeah. So you look at your people, there are certain young kids in your business, you think, oh, that person would be absolutely brilliant for this. And they're the ones at the moment who are phoning you up as the boss and asking how you are. Or they're trying to actually do some research and say, could I come back and do this, coming out of furlough? And those people are worth their weight in gold. And then you've got loads of old timers at the moment who are bitter, twisted, upset to be furloughed in the first place, who can't do that. And those relationships, the dynamics with your staff, I think is totally going to change. I think it's brilliant. I still struggle with this working from home thing permanently, because if anyone's going to be a fast growth business, you're going to have loads of youngsters there. And, it's having an office full of hubris and gangsters and massive lyrics and big paychecks and aspiration. And you just learn through osmosis, and you go and beg someone to say, what did you say? Why did you say it? How did you say it? And you learn that. How can you do that? they was sitting there with loose women in the background. Or builders. So that's going to change greatly. Right, we're going to finish this because people can't listen to us for that long. You used so many long words that they've got a thesaurus out at the moment and they're struggling. Right, so if we were to give people 3 bits of advice, what would you give as a piece of advice right now to a recruitment business leader to say, we're about to go through a bounce. We don't know when the timing is. It's like trying to play tennis blind with a massive racket, right? So if you swing, you've got a chance to get there, but you're never going to hit the sweet spot without some sort of foresight. That's a shit analogy, but I'm going to keep it. But what 3 bits of advice might you chuck out to people now?
Don't try and time the bounce. We all know from investment history, they'll tell you, trying to time the market is just craziness. But we all know from investments that actually you get the first few days of bounce, it's about 80% of your compounded profits over a period of time. So don't sit on your hands. Be agile, be ready, be in touch with the market. Don't see this as a time where you can just relax because you will lose momentum. So don't try and time the bounce, but be ready for the bounce, because I think the first out of the traps will do really, really, really well. All the good habits you picked up, and we know this because we deal with lots of businesses, the good habits you picked up about understanding your business, right? Understanding your cash flow, understanding, as you said, the ROI on each individual, each cost of acquisition of a candidate, your job boards. I mean, some of the job boards have been brilliant, some not been so brilliant for recruitment companies in this time. Remember this when you come out, right? And all the things you think you needed to do because others were doing it, just because there's a herd running one way, right? It doesn't mean they're following the right set of rules. So, if you picked up good habits, be continuing those and creating those is a great time to set the foundations for your business going forward. And I think finally, realize how fragile anything is, this market, the economy, recruitment. So don't be 80%, don't be 90%, be 100%, right? When you come back, you've got to give it everything, because the worst thing in life is to look back and go, do you know what? I could have, if I'd just been a bit more and I'd just done this. If you give everything you've got and you don't get there, you'll be somewhere still that's pretty special. And I think this is a reminder of how comfortable we can get in good times. And we've been saying that, you talked about a recession. Recruitment's been great for 7 years, especially in tech, for that prolonged period of time. But, they're just talking about the big billers. They get fat and lazy sometimes on easy business. And when they're asked to go back to the coalface, they feel it's beneath them or they don't want to do it. And that's wrong, right? I think that's wrong. So, don't try and time the market, right? And be agile. Learn your business and make sure you go for it.
Aim for the stars and you might touch the moon. It just reminded me of a little row I had on LinkedIn the other day where someone wrote a book called Top Biller and he never did 140 grand. Oh, yeah, it's a watch. Right, so I'll give you 3 back in return, right? Because you bitterly disappointed me with your 3. Oh. Right, so the first one, I watched a bit of daytime morning TV this morning. As I'm just sat there playing with the dogs, and Jo Malone was on, the Candle Girl, and she was so offended I called the Candle Girl, and she had different colour glasses, and she puts on her red glasses when she wants to be positive and creative. She puts on green glasses. I mean, she's absolutely nuts. But she said one genius thing. She said, everybody in the world, she runs a business right now, has been gifted 3 weeks to come up with the best business idea they've ever had. So I always tell people just try and find some creative time to think about their business. Now, I know you've got to spin plates and we are working, but actually start getting up when you used to get up, start going to bed when you used to go to bed, start using those travel time when you can, and you're going to create a whole bundle of time there that you'll never get back again to think, when we come back from this and then 6 months later, what will people say that changed in my business, and make it meaningful and fucking special? And I think that was really good, and that's properly motivated me, mate. So I'm going to turn my ideas up a bit, so be ready. I also think that people need to be slightly rested as they come back, because when the going gets tough, go home early, because it's very the money you make is very there's a marginal difference between the money. It's a couple of $100,000. It's not a lot of difference you can make during a really tough time.
Yeah.
But when the going gets good, every bit of extra effort could be worth $100,000, worth $100,000. You make more money. If by the time we come back, everyone's mentally exhausted, that they're burnt out because they've been trying so hard, and then we're trying to keep the wheels on, and they come back into the best market, you've overtrained, and here comes race day and you ain't ready. So making sure you're ready there. And the reason why I'm disappointed with you is, obviously, if you don't join a network right now, you're idiots. So if you're a recruitment business leader and you think you know it all, you're not. If you don't think there are people who are better in the room than you're wrong. If there are some of the newest members of our business, of the IDLC, are bringing some of the most creative ideas at the moment.
Absolutely.
And without them, the other businesses wouldn't be sort of still on their toes. So whether you join the IDLC, which is best in class because it's brilliant, people come for me and stay for him. It's creative, it's innovative, it's very supportive, it's very motivating. It's a great place to be. It's very noisy at the moment. Everyone is really leaning on each other. We just started 7 more groups yesterday because obviously we need more. But if you don't join the IDLC, make sure you join one of the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. Well, I wouldn't not agree. Obviously, I did. One of the things that I think has impressed everybody within our group, and even the free group that we ran for 5 or 6 weeks, how much everybody just mucked in together, right? And it was this whole, I suppose, political line. We're in it together, and I've seen this from the other side, looking at public sector. They're not in it together. They're almost fighting each other. Whereas, a lot of private sector businesses that are in direct competition with each other all put their hand out to the next person along and said, "I'm going to help you." And we've been. I think our WhatsApp groups have been the busiest they've ever been. Right, and it's been enlightening and humbling to watch as well, I suppose. I've enjoyed it. I think actually that's helped lockdown Zoom along because there's so much going on. It's not like you don't feel as out of touch maybe as others.
Yeah, we finished it that time. Lockdown zoomed along. If they don't use that as some sort of strap line going forward, they're absolutely idiots. Love working with you, brother. You're the smartest man in the world. Peace out, and I'll see you on the other side.